blue, charcoal. Which do you prefer, the blue or the charcoal? So if you wanted to see what that looked like on, you can see that styling detail. You just have the sleeve flowing smoothly into the jacket. Just have your arm hang at your side there. Gonna do. Would recommend matching its collar style to the jacket. And you can see the shell style button. Again, pretty subtle. Hello, welcome in. How are you doing? Wonderful. Well, I am so glad that you have stopped by our establishment today. I understand you're in the market for a new suit. Perfect. Well, you have come to the right place. We are going to craft you something that will be totally unique to you, fitted to you. I guarantee you will look sharper than you have ever looked before. Perfect. Well, you're in good hands. Just grab my notebook here to take a couple notes as we go along here. Alright, so name. Alright, and this is your first time doing a custom suit? Okay? Okay, good. Well, I will walk you through everything, each step of the way. Basically, how we'll start is I just want to get an overall concept of what you're looking for, and that will then give us kind of a vision, and we'll work through each of the details of your suit to build it out exactly the way that you want to. Okay. Great. Now, do you have something specific in mind already? You certainly don't have to. I'm happy to help you fill in everything that you're going to need. Okay. So, is this going to be for business or personal use? A bit of both. That is the way to do it, my friend. Okay. And then I assume going into the office. Yeah, so as we think about the weight and type of the fabric, you know, if it's a summer suit, we'll want to go with something lighter. If you're going to be going out to the country and hunting, then go, of course, with more of a heavier tweed. But we want to choose the fabric that's going to suit your purposes and make sure that you're comfortable, whether that's needing to stay warm or stay cool, if you need to move around a lot, things like that. Okay, but it sounds like be in the office, kind of year-round option. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna recommend a worsted wool for you. We have a variety of different types types of fabric here. More thick woolen like the tweed. Have this, which has a bit of a texture to it. And then this suit that I'm wearing, I think it actually is in the vein of what you're looking for. It's a worsted wool, and basically that's just a very nice wool that the yarns that make it up run parallel. It gives it that nice, smooth feel. I know when we often think of wool, we might think of, a wool hat or heavier tweed, but it can be much lighter, more delicate, have a very nice hand feel to it. So if that sounds good to you, I think we can kind of start there for our fabric. Okay. And then the next kind of big feature item here for the concept would be the color. Now, did you have a specific color in mind? Okay. And, this is kind of your chance to think about how you want to express yourself, right? Something like a classic gray or blue. Whether you want something that's very conservative in its style or something that stands out a little bit more, if your personality is a little more flamboyant and you want to express that. And of course we can think about patterning. Like I have this kind of plaid style pattern in the suit that I'm wearing. It's a way to give it some visual interest if you're looking for that. There's also things like pinstripe, which gives a nice little dimension to the look. Similarly, this is another take on patterning in the fabric. Some beautiful stripes here. Quite lovely. So I'm thinking, based on what you told me, something in one of these kind of darker, more classic tones, but there are also more earth tones, browns and greens, kind of more in that vein. But I'm thinking kind of one of the more classic options is what you're going for. Okay. All right, so we have the blue and the gray, charcoal, blue, charcoal. Which do you prefer, the blue or the charcoal? Blue or the charcoal? There's no rush. Feel free to make up your mind between blue and charcoal. Blue and charcoal. Of course, we could take this blue and go navy, a darker shade, or a lighter shade if you prefer a lighter, more noticeable blue. Charcoal or blue. And then there's also the pinstripe. If you want these nice pinstripes, you could go with pinstripe, or the charcoal, or the blue. Pinstripe, the charcoal, or the blue. You like the pinstripe? And this is in a black, which is a very strong statement, of course, classic, but we could do a navy pinstripe. You like that idea? Okay. So there's blue, or the charcoal, or the navy pinstripe. Okay, wonderful. All right. I think that's going to be a brilliant choice. All right. Now let's dive into some of the details of the suit. I want to start with the overall style, and the main question here is going to be single-breasted versus double-breasted. Single-breasted versus double-breasted. And are you familiar with the terms? Yeah, so single-breasted is basically the most common at this point. Probably what you think of when you picture a suit. With a single-breasted suit, we just have a row of buttons here, and the jacket will button here in the middle. Of course, very classic look. It is in fact what I am wearing at the moment. And let's see, these other options I have here are also single-breasted. It's a popular choice. The alternative would be double-breasted. Let me hold this up here. And with the double-breasted suit, we have some more fabric here. So basically, one of your lapels is going to cross over to the other. And I'll button this up to show. So you probably recognize this when you see it. It basically folds over across the other lapel, a little bit more material wrapping around the belly. And this is, it is a traditional look. It's gone in and out of style at times compared to the single-breasted. You'll see a lot of double-breasted blazers. It's definitely a matter of personal preference if you wanted to go this route, but it is a very strong look. All right, so let me just take a note here. Okay, wonderful. I think that's going to be a great choice. The single-breasted suit is going to work in all kinds of different situations. It's very flexible, always going to look sharp. Now, the next question related to that is, are you going to want a vest and do a three-piece suit? So you can see I am wearing a vest with my suit here. three-piece. Makes it very convenient to be able to slip off the jacket, particularly if it gets warm. Still have a very crisp look. It gives an extra bit of formality to the suit, but it's also kind of nice for having some additional options for how you wear the suit. If you have it and you want to go for the full three-piece look, you can. You can skip the vest. Can still give you kind of that overall look even if you take the jacket off. So I generally recommend it if you think you might be interested. Okay, great. Let me just set my coat to the side here for a moment. Okay, so we do want to go with the three-piece. Now some people do a mismatched vest. I think probably matching is a good call here, but very open to discussing if you have something else in mind. Okay. Great. Now let's hit on some of our suit details. So one key question is if you want to go with a peaked lapel or a notched lapel. Now these are actually quite distinctive elements of a suit. Maybe you don't always explicitly notice them, but they certainly have a feel to the options. So probably what is most common at this point is the notched lapel. Grab this jacket here to show you. You'll see you have the lapel here, and quite literally there is a notch in the lapel. Fairly subtle here. Just gives a little bit of a design element. It's the notched lapel. You'll see the blue jacket I have here also has a notched lapel. The notched lapel on the gray, the notched lapel on the blue, the notched lapel on the gray, and the notched lapel on the blue. And a similar story with the pinstripe that we looked at, where again you'll see the notched lapel. This one's cut a little bit deeper, a little more apparent. And the alternative is the peaked lapel. So you see on our lapel it is cut in, but instead of that triangular notch, we actually have this extra bit of fabric, a peak on the lapel. And this gives a bit more of a dramatic look. The notch is a bit more subtle, so it can be a bit of a style statement if that's what you're looking for. You'll see jackets of both types, but probably the majority are the notched lapel and the fashion these days. The peaked lapel can be quite beautiful and a very nice detail on your jacket. Grab my jacket as well. Just to show you, I have the peaked lapels on this jacket. So if you wanted to see what that looked like on, you can see that styling detail just adds a little bit of flair to the jacket. And that was something that I wanted with this suit. A little bit of color and pattern and some design details like the peaked lapel. It's all part of what look that you are going for. Okay, so let me take this back off again now that I've shown you the peaked lapel. And again, I will set this out of our way. Grab my notebook here. And so how are we feeling about the lapels? The notch or the peaked lapel? Entirely up to you. The notched? Great. Yeah, we're going to have a very nice, clean look to your suit. It's going to be very sharp. Again, this is going to work for many different uses. If you just want to look sharp going out to a nice restaurant, or you need to look dynamite at the office, this is definitely going to serve your purposes. Okay. And the next detail is a bit of a subtle one, and I probably should have left my jacket on to help show you. And now we have a decision to make about the shoulders of the jacket. So if you look at the shoulder on this jacket here, see how it kind of has a ridge where it meets the shoulder? It doesn't come smoothly into the rest of the jacket, but kind of rolls over into it. Again, a detail that has a little more drama to it, a little less typical at this point, but it is one style of how we can join the sleeve to the chest and shoulder of the jacket. And the other alternative is a much more streamlined joint. For instance, here, where I see you don't have that pronounced ridge, you just have the sleeve flowing smoothly into the jacket, which is what we have on the blue as well. And this beautiful striped double-breasted jacket, it's kind of in between. You'll see that there is a subtle rise there where it joins the shoulder, not quite as pronounced as the one on the jacket I'm wearing, but it is there. So it's a little bit more of an older style, but it can add a nice flair. So this kind of splits the difference between these smooth joints and my more rounded joint here. These have a very streamlined, clean look to them. They feel modern. If you're going for that more subtle elegance, it could be a good choice. Okay? Perfect. Yes, it seems straightforward, but it's a sum of all of its many little parts. Yeah, just subtle details that can help define the difference between one suit to another. And I will just ask, for the vest, I would recommend matching its collar style to the jacket. So here I have the peaked lapel. It is paired with the peaked lapel on the vest. So there's a nice harmony between the elements of the suit. Makes sense? So I think we'll go the same notched collar on your vest as on your jacket. Okay? Kind of get the same cohesive feel to the overall suit. Okay. Alright. So, quick note there. Lovely. So we're getting down to some of the last details of the jacket. And next up we have buttons. Of course, we have buttons on the jacket, and this is an area where you could go wild or go very simple. Here we have the darker charcoal jacket and just a very simple dark gray button to accompany it. Nothing too fancy, magical, modern polymers. And as we look at our other jackets, we see sort of similar pattern here. We have basically the same color button on the jacket, a match to the fabric. It's a very nice look. Doesn't draw too much attention to itself. More classically, might have buttons made from shell, which kind of have that nice patterning to them. Still a fairly subtle look. But can be quite beautiful, just little touches of interest. And again, I will use my jacket as a reference point for you. Comes in handy for this, having some of these features. And you can see the shell style button. There's a kind of nice warm brownish tones to it. Each just a little bit different. And adds a touch of interest there. So thoughts? Anything outrageous you might want to do there? Okay. Perfect. Alright, so almost done then on the jacket front. So then let's discuss the lining. So here, this beautiful kind of paisley fabric, this nice silk that the jacket kind of rides smoothly as you move. It's a beautiful option, but you could choose any fabric that you wanted for the lining here. Our Brioni jacket here, of course, has the logo displayed, but again, kind of beautiful dark navy fabric here. This tweed jacket, kind of country, sturdy wool, still has a kind of nice accent touch here in its lining. And then of course you can go with something very straightforward as well. Just a classic color matching blue liner here on this jacket. Black here on the pinstripe jacket. It's up to you. And then it's up to you for the vest. The back can match the jacket liner, or it can keep the overall look of the suit if you want to keep that full look going without the jacket on. Okay. And what do you think about that? Okay. I think that is a beautiful choice. All right, we are making wonderful progress on this incredible suit that we're going to craft for you. All right, we have one final detail on the jacket before we move on, and that is how we want to handle the vents. So vents are really just where we have some gap in the fabric, and this can help the suit drape. A characteristic of a suit jacket, and while not required, it would be unconventional. Let me lift this up. So you see how the back of the jacket and the side are split here. This is our vent, and this jacket has one on each side, as you can see. One on each side. So that would be the most typical option. And it is nice because it gives some flexibility for you if you want to put your hands in your pockets. The other alternative would be a single vent in the rear of the jacket. But this is one case where I will probably steer you and suggest that the classic two vents are the way to go here. Does that work for you? Okay, wonderful. Getting a wonderful conception of your suit here. We'll take all these details and then I'm going to get your measurements and using those, we'll build out a sort of initial draft of your suit, and we'll have you back in. We'll do any final measurements and adjustments to make sure it is perfectly suited to your body, so to speak. And you'll look super sharp because it'll be precisely formed for you. But let us talk about trousers. That is kind of the final ingredient here. There are a couple questions about them, but this is fairly straightforward. I think the first question for you is suspenders or belt? Okay. There are certainly advantages and disadvantages to both. That is going to work just fine. And then, how would you like to handle pockets? So, probably most common, and probably what most people would expect, is we'll have pocket slits on the side so you can put your hands in. Another option would be more like a flat pocket on the front of the pants, sort of like the pockets on the jacket. But if you're typically used to putting your hands in your pockets, and although you might necessarily not want to do so while wearing a incredible custom suit, this would give you that flexibility. Tuck in your keys or a credit card or whatnot. I think something pretty standard there is really just going to be the best option, but it is up to you. Okay, great. And then flat front or a pleated front. I'm going to suggest a pleat for your suit. Okay. All right. And the exact fit of the trousers will lock in when you come in for your final fitting, but I do want to get a sense for how you're thinking about the cut at the bottom of the leg. So if you have your shoe here, think about how we want the trouser to drape. So you could go high water here, where we're well above the shoe, revealing the sock. For some people, that is a style choice. You have it basically just touching the shoe, a little bit overlapping, so it'll hang towards the rear of the shoe and sit on the laces a little bit. And generally, somewhere in here is about where I'd recommend. You can also push that more with a longer pant. But I think just a bit of drape onto the shoe is going to be perfect. Okay, great. Let me just take a couple notes on that. Do you generally have the shoes in mind that you'd be wearing for this, or some options? Okay. Yeah, if there's a specific pair, go ahead and bring that to the fitting. That'll help us out. Okay, and then one other question. Are you gonna be, how much are you gonna move around in these? You know, is this a suit that only goes to the office? Are you gonna hit the clubs? Are you gonna crash a wedding and really gonna have a lot of energetic dancing and moving around? Okay. Yeah, so we can kind of think about how it drapes, how form-fitting it is, how much kind of flexibility we can give you, and how we assemble the trousers. Okay. Perfect. Alright, well, it is time to take your measurements. I think we have a good sense of the style and feel of the suit you're going for. So I'm going to take your measurements and we'll use those to build the first version of your suit out of the fabric. Alright, so I'm going to take a variety of measurements. Don't worry, it does not hurt. So I just need to get basically a clear picture of all the measurements of your body. Don't worry about anything. There is no more confidential bond than between a person and their tailor. You can literally tell me anything, and people have. Alright, so just have your arm hang at your side there. I'm gonna do. Okay, and over here as well on the other side. With an off-the-rack suit, they're going to be cut equally on both sides, but most humans have some variation in their limb lengths and other aspects of their body. So that's one of the advantages of a custom suit. We can make sure it is fitted exactly to you. That'll help it look super sharp. Alright, I'm going to take a measurement of your neck. So just wrap this around. Okay. And lift your arm up for me. Let's get a bicep measurement. Need to understand how we're going to accommodate your guns. You must work out a decent amount. Okay. Well, if you pound a bunch of iron between now and when we deliver the suit, that could affect this. So, are you planning to have a bunch of gains? Okay. Alright, so then I'm going to measure around the chest. So if I could just have you lift up your arms a bit. Okay, and relax those arms. Perfect. And then just arms at your sides, gonna measure the shoulder. And on the other side here. Okay. And then I'm gonna go down the arm. And the side as well. Okay. Jot those down. And I'm gonna go around your waist here. Okay. going to get the outside of your leg here. And the other side as well. Perfect. Yeah, just stand. There we go. And then we're going to do the inseam as well. There we go. Okay. And just go around again. There we go. Okay. All right. So the measurements will tell us how we need to assemble your suit. We'll set this aside. We're also happy to make a shirt for you, or more than one shirt if you're interested. We have your measurements, so it's easy to go ahead and add that if you wanted something to accompany the suit. Okay. Yeah, just like the suit, you can get it custom fitted, be absolutely perfect for your body. Okay. All right, well, that means more questions. Did you have a specific color you might be interested in to go with the suit? Well, we're working on a pretty classic look here, so it doesn't rule anything out per se, but I think there's some clear potential roads to go down here. Let me just show you a couple things. So, of course, a nice, crisp white could be tremendous. Blue would also be very classic. It's going to work super well with a lot of different options. You could go with an off-white. Not such a bold blast of white. And then if you wanted a blue, but something that had some more patterning to it in the style, you didn't just want to have a solid color, for instance. And like the shirt I'm wearing here, another take on that, just kind of a nice subtle pattern that can add some interest. White and blue, off-white, a pattern. Another option, like a nice check, like this. Again, pretty subtle, but can be a beautiful option. Okay. So, thoughts then on And if there's something else you wanted that we didn't look at, of course. Okay. Yeah, these are just some very classic options. There are a couple extra questions about the shirt, of course. So one detail is the nature of the collar on the shirt. So this is a fairly spread collar. The points go out towards the side, reveals a lot of the tie knot. Other collars have the points more downwards. They sit over the knot of the tie more. In this case, fairly pointed, fairly downward. Mine is spread towards the side, more opening up this area. This is pretty classic. I might generally recommend it, but a lot of people like the spread collar style. It's really a matter of personal preference. And we can do button-down collars, but I feel that's a little more casual look compared to what you're going for here. So, how are we feeling about collar? Great. The next question then concerns the cuffs. Button cuffs or French cuffs like these, which would be worn with cufflinks. Less common these days, perhaps, but extremely classic and classy. The cufflinks, of course, allow for a nice little extra detail or piece of personal expression if you wanted to do so. Yeah? Might be interested in that. Okay, great. And then what about cufflinks? Okay. Well, I have a number of vintage options available. Some different styles. Like a nice classic silver, a little bit of design on there. It's a style that wraps around the cuff of the shirt. It's fairly dramatic and noticeable. Kind of a vintage gold option, triangle. As I said, you can have nice little touches on here, like this jewel. Just draw a bit of the light in the eye. There's another just simple gold bar option. There's an incredible array of choices when it comes to cufflinks. But I have something for you. As a token of appreciation for your business, coming in for an exquisite custom suit and shirt with us. Have this vintage pair. The fleur-de-lis. Very elegant and classy These are going to go with many different things. I think you should have this pair. Here you are. So, wonderful cufflinks to go with the shirt that will get made for you. I have one last question on the shirt before we wrap up, actually. Do you want it with a pocket? Or without a pocket? With a pocket? Without a pocket? With a pocket? Or without a pocket? Excellent. I think that'll be a great look. All right, well, that gives me everything that I need to know about the suit that you are looking for. We will get that built out. It'll probably take us 4 to 6 weeks. I will give you a call when it's ready for you to come in, and we'll do the final fitting, identify anywhere we need to adjust to make sure it fits perfectly on you, and that'll be your chance to see it in person for the first time, which will be very exciting. All right, any questions? Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in. You're gonna like the way you look. I promise. All right, have a wonderful day, and I will see you again before too long.